And he said, well, do you have time to sit and have a cup of coffee? That was the beginning of our friendship, if you want to say that.
Sparky reversed his role as being a mild-tempered guy with Joyce to being, I'm going to run this show with Jeannie. I think he was a lot stronger with Jeannie in what he was willing to do and not to do than he was with Joyce.
In our marriage, we simply moved forward. We moved forward with some of the same friends he had, some of the same friends I had had. You know, friends came, we played tennis, we had a picnic on the lawn at the studio, and Sparky went back to work.
I'm king in my own little kingdom there, right? Once I get into my studio behind my drawing board, finally I know what's going on. I'm at the helm. You have to kind of bend over the drawing board, shut the world out, and just draw something that you hope is funny. And that's all you should think about at that time.
I'm sitting in my studio, minding my own business, and the phone rang, and this voice came on. He said, hello, this is Charles Schultz. I just wanted to tell you that I like what you're doing. And I had been doing For Better For Worse for a couple of years, and I said, who? And he said, rather apologetically, I do Peanuts? As if I didn't know, right? And I said, and I was standing when I was answering the phone, so I said, excuse me, I have to sit down. And he had this lovely soft voice, and he was just so complimentary and so generous.
Here's a guy who you know has grown up feeling like an outsider, gawky and awkward and, you know, definitely not a big man on campus, kind of Joe College. But in the end, he was very adept at flirting and charming people, women in particular. Like Archie Leach becoming Cary Grant. He became the romantic leading man, just created himself into it.
Oh, he loved to hold hands, and he loved to send flowers, and he loved to make little songs up on the phone. And I mean, he was absolutely charming. Don't forget I love you. I love you too. Click.
And when I have a good idea, I can hardly get the words down fast enough. I'm afraid that they will leave me before I get them down on the paper. And sometimes my hand will literally shake with excitement as I'm drawing it because I'm having a good time. Unfortunately, this does not happen every day.
Sparky did everything. He never had an assistant. He never had anybody ruling pages or doing his lettering or any of that. I mean, that was his insistence on the art being his.
I had just taken over a position of managing editor, and one of my editors had changed a word. I think she just changed a punctuation in the strip, and I didn't stop that from happening. And I was in a meeting, and she came running into me and in tears because Sparky had called her and said, why was this changed? And I basically had to call him, introduce myself, and say, which was the truth, you're absolutely right, that shouldn't have happened, it will never happen again, and can we start over? And first he had to say, I don't need to do this. If you want to write the strip, you write the strip. You know, it wasn't so nice. That he had to say that. Once he said that, it was okay. It wasn't fine, but it was okay. Sparky knew not only that he was very powerful, he also knew that he was very talented. On the other hand, he needed to be told on occasion, you truly are talented and you truly are powerful.
Are you ever surprised at the immense success at Peanuts?
No. No, I am surprised. I had the desire to draw a good comic strip ever since I was probably about 6 years old.
Charlie's changed so over the years. Would you draw him as he is today?
It's quite a challenge. It's a hard head to draw. Whenever they talk about somebody else drawing Charlie Brown, I always say, well, just draw that head.
There was a side of him that was very humble, very meek, very quiet, very apologetic. And then there was the feisty, I'm going to win. I'm going to win no matter what. And you watch me. So if somebody said, "Oh, Mr. Schultz, you're just the most wonderful thing in the world, and you're just a genius," he'd say, "Oh, well, no, not really." And if somebody else came along and said, "Well, I don't think you're doing the best work in the world," he'd say, "I'll see you in the Louvre."
This year, I'm really going to kick that football.
The very best cartoonists are compelled to do what they do. He needed the strip. This was as much his child as any of his children. I mean, this was his creation. In some ways, this was his way of playing God.
A four-legged friend, a four-legged friend, he'll never let you down. He's honest and faithful right up to the end. That wonderful 1, 2, 3, four-legged friend.
If you have to define happiness, I defy you to define it in a better way than happiness is a warm puppy. That says a lot.
A four-legged friend, a four-legged friend, he'll never let you
He
down.
was Peanuts. Nothing was ever going to be done without his okay. There would be approval on really bad licensed products, and he would be very upset and frustrated. It took a contract renegotiation for him to get everything he wanted, and that included an approval right on everything.
The Peanuts characters have become a commercial bonanza.
There's something about a born leader that you recognize immediately. That's
Retail sales in 1996 were over $1 billion.
People would come in and barrage him with ideas. 3D salt shakers or characters that were in plush. They would come up with gold rings. We know that's too expensive. I don't like that idea. One thing after another.
Meetings would go on a little too long, and you could just sort of see him getting tense. He's paying attention, but he really wants to be somewhere else. I've got to get the strip done. I need some time to work on the strip. Snoopy is really dictating a lot about Sparky's life. It was a big catch-22. This peanut strip that Charles Schultz had to create was also in some ways a monster.
Come on, let's try this real good. Beep, beep, five, five, four, four, four. I smell smoke in the auditorium. Charlie Brown, oh, he's a clown. That Charlie Brown, he's gonna get caught. Just you wait and see.
There was an event in Washington we went to, and he was surrounded by autograph people, and he just went crazy. He had to get out.
You have, 150 people lined up to give autographs. No matter who you cut it off at, somebody's going to go home mad, and you can't sign them all day long.
People who would come up to him and want to shake his hand, he would simply turn his back on them and walk away, and he knew it himself. He would say to me at an event, "Well, that was a Lucy moment."
Here was this gentle, wonderful person that I'd known for so many years, and to see him bark at somebody, that was new for me.
And then he would say, "I never really know whether people like me." "Well, of course they like you, Sparky. Of course they like you." And then he would say, "Well, yes, but I never really know where I stand. If I weren't rich and famous, would anybody pay attention to me?" When we were traveling, and he just would wake up in the middle of the night and wake me up and say, "What am I doing here? Why did I get talked into this?" And I think that is a classic panic attack.
In a moment with his wife Jeannie, going to look at seals at Half Moon Bay, pausing and saying, don't take this personally, but I just kind of feel cut off and lonely right now. It's no statement about you. I just feel this strange sense of isolation. And I, over and over, heard him saying that in many different ways.
If he'd drive along for 10 minutes without saying anything, I thought, well, shouldn't we be talking? I think as a wife, you think, well, did I do something wrong? Is he mad about something? He didn't notice because I think he was retreating into his head.
He was needy and needed your support. But at the same time, once he had it, he would push you away. And then if he thought he was going to lose you, he'd bring you back again. His dog was about the only living being that he ever really fully could just let go and love, because a dog is a dog, and Andy was his love. If Andy fell asleep on his lap, he wouldn't get up for an hour because the dog was sleeping. I don't want to wake up the dog.
I just sit in my big chair and I have my little TV clicker and I run up and down the channels and shoot from one thing to another, and my dog jumps up on the hassock in front of me and asks for another cookie, and I give it to him and he jumps down, and I click from one program to another, then he jumps up in the hassock and he wants another cookie, and I give him another doggy cookie and he jumps down again. That's our life. Pretty soon I know it's 9:30 and it's time to go to bed.
The things that were closest to him were the things that were never going to let him down. I think he was always prepared for people to let him down. I don't think he ever wanted to give anybody 100% of what was inside, because I think he didn't really know where it was himself.
Be careful, Charles.
Okay.
Pull your muffler around your neck, Charles.
Okay, now,
If I saw a movie 10 times, it would be a lot. If I saw it 15 times, it would be excessive. 40 times? What was he looking for?
Charles!
Go on, Mr. Thatcher.
Well, it's almost 5, Mrs. Kane. Don't you think I'd better meet the boy?
I've got his trunk all packed. I've had it packed for a week now.
I think there were mysteries in his childhood. His parents didn't talk a lot, and Sparky always felt as if he didn't understand what was going on around him.
I remember when he told me about the loss of his mother, and if your parents don't tell you the truth, you know right away. He wanted the truth, and I don't think he always got it. And I think he always told the truth in the strip.
How did this happen that he's suddenly talking about the feelings that he didn't talk about within his family? You know, he's writing in his diary almost as he's drawing the comic strip.
And he constantly said, oh, people say they want to know the real me. Well, that's the real me. He explored his own feelings through the strip and was often surprised by what he said himself.
I don't think that there was a secret that Charles Schulz was keeping from the world. I don't think there was a hidden mystery to his life. I think the truth is, here's a man who constantly was obliged for himself to keep asking the question, am I loved? Was I really loved? Was there love there at all in the first place? To then have the impossibility of ever knowing because she's taken away from you when you yourself are taken away from your own childhood.
I remember one time he said, "Bob, do you think God ever gets discouraged?" Well, that's a fairly profound question. Does God, the author of the universe, who made the farthest planet, the author of life itself, does he ever get discouraged? When you're wondering about God, you're wondering what God is up to. You're wondering if there's going to be any baseball after this game is over.
The first 10 years of our marriage, I was trying to figure him out. Once I felt as though I had, I knew I wasn't going to change him. He was not going to be changed. I wasn't going to cure him of his panic attacks, and that it wasn't me. The part that I could contribute to his happiness was by, in a sense, and it sounds really simple, but by being myself and by loving him. And that the rest of his happiness, he had to be in charge of that.
I just have to draw from Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday to Thursday, and it goes on and on and on. People say, well, why can't you work real hard and get way ahead, and then you could take a month off? That's foolish. Well, mine is not the kind of a job that I've worked all my life to get so that I don't have to do it.
Before he got sick, he was always afraid of cancer, and he used to worry about that a lot. How will the strip end? And I said to him, why don't you write a couple of weeks that will end the strip? Do whatever it is that you've thought of that could end the strip, like Charlie Brown finally gets to kick the football. So that if you ever decide to retire, there it is, and it will finish the strip for you. And he said, oh, I can't do that. He said, it's like tempting fate. If I did that, I would get sick for sure. He felt that if he ended the strip, he would be killing off the characters. He would, in essence, be killing off the key to his childhood, the key to his self-analysis. So he didn't want it to end.
He didn't go for checkups. He wasn't one to run to the doctor. He didn't like to be given medicines and so forth. So if he'd gone to the doctor a couple of years before he did, he might very well have caught the cancer before it got so far advanced.
To be struck with cancer, the illness that had killed his mother, was pretty devastating.
I remember when I saw him in the hospital and he didn't have a lot of time left. And he was really saying, I don't understand. I was a good Christian. I taught Sunday school. I obeyed God's word. And why is this happening to me?
We walked around the corridor, and I said, you got to get well because you got to know that there's millions of people that are praying for you. And he did say, well, then why am I dying? And I can't remember what my comment was. It was a good comment, I think. I can't remember what it was. But anyways, it was, God, terrible moment.
his career, I think he recognized, was over.
This is amazing.
He felt he had to say it, because if he didn't say it, people would wonder when he was going to go back and draw, and I suppose he knew that he never could.
Why did you decide to retire? What brought you to this point?
It's hard for me to the exact remember, but
the cancer really rocked him hard. Having the stroke on top of it just broke down all the sort of the emotional wall that he had been building all his life.
it didn't really sink in until I was writing a little kind of a so long friends, you know, sort of thing. And then right at the end, I wrote his name, my name, and then it said, and I'll probably start crying. He said, well, that was Charlie Brown, minus, and so and so. And all of a sudden I thought, you know, that poor kid, he never even got to kick the football. What a dirty trick. He never had a chance to kick the football.
I think he realized he was talking about himself. He'd never let himself kick the football. He'd never let himself be the truly great man that he was.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the folks who have read Peanuts for the last almost 50 years?
It is amazing that they think that what I do was good. I just did the best I could.
Thank you for all the years. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
I remember him walking me out to my car up there, and I did get in my car, and he did grab a hold of me. He never, I told you he had a tough time putting his arm around anybody or anything, but he did grab me by the arm, and he said, Chuck, you've always been such a great friend of mine. But he knew he was not going to be around very long.
So I called him at home, and that was the Monday before he died. And he said, well, please call me back again really soon. And I didn't, because we left the next day to go to Hawaii, and I thought, well, I can call him when I get home.
I think he told Monty and Jill before they left that night that he says I'm probably not going to make it. And they both kind of laughed it off, saying, oh yeah, you will. We'll see you tomorrow. We're going to go rollerblading. And kind of ironic, because that was almost in line with what his mother had said to him, you know, when he left. She said, well, we're hoping never to see each other again, Sparky, so I better say goodbye. And his statement was almost the same sort of thing. So I found that a little eerie, you know.
I went down and lay with him for a while, and we were talking, and then I said, well, I think I'll go get the paper and wash the dishes. And he said, well, I'll turn over then and just go to sleep. And so, you know, I stuck my head in a couple times and thought he was just sleeping, and then came back and discovered he was dead. How he died the day before his last strip came out is, you know, just beyond me.
The next day was Valentine's Day. And the mail was delivered about 11:30, and there was a box from his studio. I kept telling myself it was nothing, it was just, it was something from the office that, you know, needed to be looked at. But it was actually a Valentine's present from Sparky. I think think Sparky taught a lot of people about emotion and about how we feel. Being in touch with your inner child, what is that if it's not Peanuts? He put those hard to deal with feelings on the page, and we saw them every day.
To learn more about Charles Schulz, visit pbs.org.